You mentioned January 6th and what we've learned since then. We've now learned a lot because of Senator Grassley and others about this Arctic frost. 430 Republican organizations and individuals getting targeted. What do you think about that and where we are now in terms of what we do to correct it?
I'm shocked, but not surprised. I think that should be the attitude of most Republicans. I am shocked because it's shocking. The scope, the depth, how close things actually got to a real curtailing of all American right-wing activity under Biden. But I'm not really surprised because they did prosecute Trump multiple times, and they did try to kick him off the ballot, and they did prosecute nuns, and they did, imprison pro-life grannies, and so I'm not surprised in that way. But this should be the final antidote, I think, to the squishes on the right who say, well, by golly, we don't want to be indicting Democrats who have broken the law, and in some cases related to Arctic frost. Because if we do that, the minute the Democrats get into power, they might do the same thing to us. Yeah, they did. They did that. They did that about as extremely as it is possible to do that. So the options, look, you might say, I don't want to live in a political culture where the government is weaponized against enemies and politicians are prosecuted, but we do. That's it. Politics is the real world. It's a practical science. It's not a theoretical science. So you can either engage and have the courage to try to advance a good substantive vision for the country, or you can let the Democrats have another crack at it next time. Arctic Frost 2, Electric Boogaloo. I fear there are some squishes who really want that, but I think most Republicans realize, okay, we're in a different political order. Now's our moment to try to right the ship, and if we don't, we basically have no one but ourselves to blame.
So speaking of your movie themes, you mentioned Arctic Frost, Electric Boogaloo. I'm thinking one of the other things we need to revive is Weekend at Biden 2. And this James Comer has come out with a stunning report about what everybody knew at the time, because he's actually got now, as the kids like to say, the receipts. He has actual testimony. And then they've got actual emails between some of the staff where they're saying, hey, what do we do with this? Because we can't prove that the president actually reviewed some of these important actions. I got to be honest with you. You want to talk about shocked but not shocking? I'm actually both on this one.
Yeah.
Like, I got that he didn't work a lot, but I would have assumed that they would have been like, guys, we got to run it by the boss. The idea that they're admitting in emails and in testimony that, we kind of didn't really know if he was alive or not.
Sean, I know you hear a lot in the rumor mill of DC. Even I from Nashville, I go visit the swamp every so often. And I remember during Biden, I heard a rumor, and I didn't talk about it publicly because I didn't have any real corroboration of it. I heard a rumor, and I even forget the details, that someone went to Biden and was complaining about some executive order, some provision, something that damaged his industry, whatever, and that Biden had no idea what this guy was talking about. He wasn't even playing cute and trying to evade response. He said, I didn't sign that. What are you talking about? And at the time I said, that's interesting. I'm going to tuck that away in my mind. Knowing what we know now about the auto pen and about Biden's apparent incapacitation for a large part of his presidency, it obviously rings true. And there was obviously a lot more of it. And this is not unprecedented in as much as Woodrow Wilson was incapacitated, another terrible Democrat president, and his wife appears to have basically run the country during a lot of his term. But it's rare that we have this kind of thing in American politics. And so there is a question. Are the executive orders legit? Are the pardons, for instance,
yes.
Are they legit? Does it count or no?
All right, guys, I hate to interrupt this conversation, but if you're loving the Sean Spicer Show, maybe you want something to snack on, join me in getting a great snack in Masa Chips. These things are unbelievable. No seed oils, just 3 ingredients. And I'm telling you, they've got a ton of great flavors. Original, blue, lime, habanero. Oh, it's amazing. Every one of them is great. You can dip them. They're amazing. Go to masachips.com/Sean, S-E-A-N, masachips.com/Sean. Use code word Sean, spelled the right way, S-E-A-N, to get 25% off. All right, back to this great conversation. And remember, if you're watching the Sean Spicer Show, the official chip, masachips.com/Sean, code word Sean. Listen, I think I asked this to John Solomon the other day. Neither of us are lawyers, but I said, because the pardon power is absolute, right? Meaning that if the president says, I deem Michael Knowles to have a pardon, there's no check, no balance. It just is.
Yeah.
But it has to assume to coming from the executive.
Right.
And if we can prove, or if someone can say, we can't show that he ever knew that happened, then yeah, I got to question whether that's legit. But but beyond that, Michael, the other question I asked John Solomon is, we see all of these emails, and we've got now some testimony of people saying, like, it was like Oz behind the curtain, right? How do we go get this approved? We don't want to scare the man. And I said to John Solomon, like, don't, but we all knew at the end of The Wizard of Oz, they pull back the curtain and there's Oz. You're like, wow, it's just a little dude, right? I mean, that was the dirty secret. What I said to Solomon was, we don't even know who the little dude is. Was it Mike Donnellan? Was it Steve Ricchetti? Was it Anita Dunn? Was it Jill Biden? But how do we not know who is actually running the country? We know all of these staffers never interacted with them for weeks on end. So who was running the country?
In a way, it was a kind of a fulfillment of Woodrow Wilson's vision, because Woodrow Wilson had this view that the presidency was too big for any one man, and he wanted this blob kind of bureaucracy just to fill it out. I guess that came to fruition 100 years later. We almost certainly never will find out, though. There's this reckoning, even within the left. You'll recall that the ratings for the left-wing cable networks, they dropped precipitously after the last election. It wasn't because conservatives tuned them out. It's because the liberals had been lied to. They had been lied to about Biden's health. They had been lied to about Kamala Harris's chances of beating Trump. They'd just been lied to about everything, and they wanted to tune it out. So Biden's spokeslady, had your job and did not do as good a job at it as you did.
She never had the job. She had a title.
She had the title, and she was sometimes up there on camera. But she was on MSNBC the other day, and they say, okay, KJP, do you regret anything that you said during the Biden presidency? And that's kind of a softball, tough question. It's introspective, but it's kind of, do you have any regrets? She could have said no. She could have moved on. And what did she say? She said, I am a Black queer woman. I am a Black lesbian. That was her answer to it. And that was the explanation, I think, of why she was never fired from that job. Joe Biden was so upfront about the identity politics, even in the choosing of his running mate in 2020. And that's all they're going to say. I mean, they have no explanation. Anything they say is more damning than the last thing. So, they've got their story and they're sticking to it, which is, they're privileged, they're beleaguered, they're oppressed, they owe nothing to anyone, pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. It's unsatisfactory for their own voters.
As you're saying that, those times when somebody like walks into somewhere and they go, I'm sorry, we don't have any seats. And you go, I'm a founding member. And they go, oh, you're a founding member. Come on through. I feel like that's the response that KJP, they were like, we have a question for you. And she goes, I'm a queer Black woman. Oh, okay, sorry. We'll just pull out the crudité and,
yes.
Would you like a spritzer? It was like, sorry, we'll stop with the questioning and just promote your book now.
Ma'am, I had no idea.
I had no idea. I'm sorry. You're a founding member. Really?
I think it's some of those nice clubs in DC. I got to try that, where I can't get in. I said, listen, hey, I'm a Black queer woman. Where is my
I identify as one.
Yeah.
Maybe I should use that. I identify as a Black queer woman. But don't you think the other piece of this aside from the cover up, the idea that the media, think about the breadth and depth of the story. You mentioned Wilson, and you've got scandals throughout, Whitewater and Nixon and Watergate, right? The idea that you have, through testimony now, not conjecture, testimony and emails, a question as to who was running the government of the United States. And the Washington Post is just they literally, one of their headlines the other day was about how MAGA women are disappointed in the single guys in DC. And I'm like, no, that's literally not a joke. That was a big story in the Washington Post, how MAGA women that moved here for Trump too are disappointed in them. And I'm like, okay, or the country wasn't run for 4 years. Look.
Obviously, you got to run with the lack of virile men in D.C. There's a simple explanation, which is that we're looking at yellow dog Democrats. Everyone knows about the blue dog Democrats. who no longer exist. Maybe John Fetterman is trying to revive it, but those kind of more moderate Dems, they're basically all progressive. And it's the yellow dog Democrats, which is they'd vote for a yellow dog over a Republican. And so they don't care really. And to some degree, I sympathize with them. If they really believe that Trump is Hitler and he poses an existential threat to the country, then sure, who cares if Hunter Biden's running the government? At least he's not Hitler. And that's their view. And if it's a little illegal or a little extra constitutional, or if some of those pardons are a little suspect, they're just going to deny till they die. They think that the juice was worth the squeeze, and they're going to move on. And frankly, they would probably do it again.
Pam Bondi says we're going to get accountability. Do you believe that?
I hope springs eternal in the human breast, to quote Alexander Pope, but I'll reserve my optimism until we see receipts. And it's no knock on Bondi, by the way. It's just a fact that the corruption was so widespread. It was so deep. It would take years to unwind all of it. If we get any action, any accountability for the political corruption that we saw going back all the way to Crossfire Hurricane 2015, 2016, I would be happy with that. But I wouldn't bet the farm on total accountability. I don't think there's enough time.
Two more things for you. One, we're a few days out now from this New York election. The Democrats elect Mandami, which I think, who knows? Cuomo may pull it off. But if either one wins, what does it say about the Democratic Party that this is what the greatest city in frankly, I think, on the earth has come to?
It's telling that Mamdani would not win without foreign-born New Yorkers. If the election were only held with American-born New Yorkers, then Andrew Cuomo would almost certainly be the mayor. So it's telling because it starts to make people think about mass migration, and it starts to make Democrats think about mass migration. That's something we haven't seen really in our lifetimes. All growing up, there were two views you could have on immigration. The first was the Democrat view that illegal immigration is good and legal immigration is also good. And then there was the Republican view, which is that legal immigration is really good and illegal immigration is bad. There is a third view, which is that we've had too much migration. That's not true in every era, but it's kind of true now. The movement of people into America over the last 60 years is the largest movement of people in recorded history. We have the highest foreign-born percentage of the population throughout America that we've ever had. And in New York, it's something like 40%. So you just can't have that. At a certain point, you don't have any social solidarity. You don't have any kind of political community anymore. And if the silver lining to the storm cloud of a Muslim communist becoming the mayor of New York is that finally we're going to have a Democrats think more seriously about immigration, I guess I'll take it. But it's really nauseating because it's America's greatest city. Yeah. It's my home city. I try to get back as often as I can. And I think it's probably going to be a ghost town pretty soon as every semi-reasonable person is going to flee for freer pastures.
All right. Last thing I want to ask you. You testified this week about political violence. Charlie Kirk was a friend of yours. You've been critical and influential in the movement on college campuses. Erica Kirk and J.D. Vance spoke at this amazing Wednesday night event. When you look at the future of what the movement is, and based on your experience and your travels and what happened Wednesday night, if you look in your crystal ball, what does Michael Knowles see for the future of the young conservative movement?
What Erica has done is superhuman. The fact that she took the reins, and she's really the only person who could have taken the reins of the most important young conservative organization in the country, that she did that days after her husband was killed. I got to spend a little time with Erica. We went, visited, sat in for the show one day, and obviously there have been a lot of events. Charlie and I were supposed to host an event together 12 days after he was killed. I ended up doing it solo with an empty chair. But what she has done is superhuman. It's just absolutely unbelievable. And J.D. Vance is the only political figure, I think, who could hold that coalition together, because Charlie did the job of like a dozen people, and he did it very well on every front, the debating and the fundraising and the activism and the campaigning and everything. But the most important thing he did for the politics was keeping the coalition together and expanding that coalition. As far as I'm concerned, there's only one figure who has the platform and the stature and the vision to do that right now, and it's the vice president. He did it beautifully. He subjected himself to the open Q&A of over 10,000 people. His answers were pitch perfect. I would not have changed a thing. And so, I'm really gratified to see that. Obviously, he's got other things on his plate, but it's really, really important. And I think he did his buddy proud. And I would shoot straight with you if I felt that we were in grave turmoil, or if the young conservative movement was just going to dissipate, and there was every possibility that could have happened. And I don't think that's going to happen. I think Charlie built an amazing infrastructure. I think Charlie had some really good friends who are helping to lead it. And I'm glad people are taking it seriously because, as of right now, I think the future is looking bright and clear. You never know the future. I don't actually have a crystal ball, but I think the stakes of the political fight have never been clearer.
Michael Knowles, thanks for being so generous. Congratulations on fantastic testimony and scaring Spartacus out of the room this week at the hearing. So I appreciate what you guys are doing at the Daily Wire, and thanks for everything you're doing.
Great to see you, sir. See you next time.
See you soon. Take care. Well, if you enjoyed this content, make sure to like this video, subscribe, and click the notification bell to get more.